in a place called Sunny Creek. It was like a million other towns, rows of houses all the same, lawns trimmed perfectly. The sun always seemed to shine just a little too brightly. The boy, we'll call him Michael, looked like any other kid. He went to school, played video games and ate cereal for breakfast. But behind Michael's ordinary facade, something dark was brewing. A storm of terrifying thoughts, fueled by images he shouldn't have seen. Michael's parents were oblivious. They worked, they ate dinner, they watched TV. They didn't see the warning signs, the flickering light in his eyes when he watched the late-night horror movies, the way he flinched when they touched him, the drawings he hid under his bed. They didn't see the monster he was becoming. He felt detached, like an observer in his own life. The people around him were like cardboard cutouts, going through the motions. Their happiness felt alien to him, their laughter grating. He retreated further into himself, into the darkness that whispered to him from the TV screen. He began to crave something more, something real, something visceral. He started small, torturing insects in the backyard, pulling the wings off flies. He felt a thrill, a surge of power that terrified and exhilarated him. He knew it was wrong, but he couldn't stop. The darkness had him now, its grip tightening with each passing day. The horror movies became his only solace. He would spend hours lost in their gruesome narratives. The blood, the screams, the violence, it all spoke to him on a primal level. He felt a kinship with the killers, the monsters. They understood him in a way no one else could. He started to emulate them, the way they moved, the way they spoke. He even practiced their chilling smiles in the mirror. His grades began to slip. He stopped caring about school, about his friends, if you could even call them that. His parents, finally noticing something was wrong, tried to talk to him. They asked if he was being bullied, if there was trouble at school. He just shrugged them off. He couldn't explain the darkness that consumed him. They wouldn't understand. One day he found a book in the library, a true crime novel about serial killers. He devoured the book, fascinated by the gruesome details of each murder. He felt a strange sense of validation. He wasn't alone in his darkness. Others had walked this path before him, and he would walk it further. He would show them all. He started planning. He knew he couldn't keep these feelings bottled up forever. The pressure was building like a volcano about to erupt. He needed a release, a way to unleash the monster that clawed at the bars of his sanity. He knew what he had to do. The images flashed in his mind, blood, screams, chaos. His heart pounded with a terrifying anticipation. The day dawned like any other in Sunny Creek. The sun, a mockingly cheerful orb in the sky, cast long shadows across the manicured lawns. Birds chirped, oblivious to the darkness festering in the heart of their suburban paradise. Michael went through the motions of his morning routine. He showered, ate breakfast and kissed his mother goodbye. He even managed a smile. He had a role to play, a facade to maintain. But beneath the surface, beneath the normalcy, a storm raged. He felt a cold detachment settle over him. The world around him seemed distant, muffled, like he was watching it through a pane of glass. The backpack felt unusually heavy as he slung it over his shoulder. Inside, nestled among textbooks and crumpled homework assignments, lay the instrument of his liberation. A large kitchen knife, its blade gleaming dully in the morning light. He walked to school, his footsteps echoing hollowly in his ears. He saw his classmates, their faces aglow with youthful exuberance. He heard their laughter, their chatter about homework and football games. They were so innocent, so oblivious to the darkness that lurked just beneath the surface of their perfect world. He felt a surge of contempt for their naivete, their blissful ignorance. He entered the school building, the smell of stale sweat and industrial cleaner washing over him. He navigated the crowded hallways, a ghost drifting through a sea of faces. No one noticed him. No one ever did. He was invisible, but not for long. Soon everyone would know his name. They would whisper it in hushed tones, their faces etched with fear. He would become a legend, a nightmare made flesh. The cafeteria buzzed with the usual lunchtime cacophony. The air hung heavy with the smell of overcooked pizza and teenage sweat. Students huddled in their cliques, their laughter echoing off the linoleum floor. Michael sat alone, as always, at a table by the window. He picked at his food, his stomach churning with a potent cocktail of fear and anticipation. The time had come. He stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor, silencing the nearby conversations. All eyes turned to him. He felt a surge of adrenaline, a primal thrill coursing through his veins. He reached into his backpack and pulled out the knife. The gleaming blade seemed to pulse with a life of its own, reflecting the fluorescent lights overhead in a macabre dance. A collective gasp filled the air. Time seemed to slow to a crawl. He saw the fear in their eyes, their mouths forming silent screams. A terrifying calm washed over him. This was it. This was his moment. He lunged forward, the knife a blur in his hand. He felt the blade connect with flesh, heard the sickening thud of metal meeting bone. A scream ripped through the air, shattering the stunned silence. Then all hell broke loose. Section 5, Flight and Despair. The Boy Who Vanished. The next few minutes were a blur of motion and sound, screams, the sickening crunch of bone, the metallic tang of blood filling his nostrils. He moved like a wraith, cutting down anyone who crossed his path. He felt no remorse, no pity, only a cold, detached fury. Each life he extinguished fueled the inferno raging within him. He didn't know how long the carnage lasted. It felt like an eternity, a nightmarish ballet of blood and screams. He was vaguely aware of sirens wailing in the distance, drawing closer. The sound jolted him back to reality. He had to go. He dropped the knife, the blade slick with blood, and melted into the fleeing crowd. He ran until his lungs burned and his legs screamed for mercy. He didn't dare look back. He could still hear the screams, the sirens, the echoes of his own madness. They were hunting him now. He was a fugitive, a monster in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of the world. He had crossed a line and there was no turning back. He found himself in a park, a familiar haven from his childhood. He collapsed on a bench, his chest heaving. He looked down at his hands. They were covered in blood. His blood, their blood. He felt a surge of nausea, but it quickly subsided, replaced by a chilling emptiness. He was alone, utterly alone. Section 6, Shadows of Home. A momentary respite. The setting sun cast long shadows across the manicured lawns of Sunny Creek as Michael crept towards his home. He avoided the main road, sticking to the shadows, the back alleys, the forgotten corners of his seemingly idyllic town. He knew the police would be looking for him, their faces plastered on every news channel, their voices crackling over every police scanner. He slipped in through his bedroom window, grateful that his parents were still at work. The familiar scent of his childhood home washed over him, a bittersweet reminder of a life he could never reclaim. He went to the bathroom and scrubbed his hands raw, trying to wash away the blood, the guilt, the horror that clung to him like a second skin. But some stains run deeper than soap and water. He changed his clothes, pulling on a dark hoodie and jeans, shedding his blood-soaked uniform like a snake shedding its skin. He packed a small bag with essentials, a few changes of clothes, his phone, his wallet. He hesitated, then added a framed photograph of him and his parents, their faces frozen in time, their smiles a painful reminder of a life shattered. He left the photograph on his pillow, a silent apology, a last vestige of the boy he used to be. He slipped out the back door, melting into the gathering darkness, leaving behind the only life he had ever known. He was a ghost now, a phantom haunting the edges of society. He was the boogeyman, the monster under the bed, the nightmare whispered in hushed tones. He was the darkness that lurked in the heart of Sunny Creek. Section 7. Into the wilderness, escape to the unknown. The woods welcomed him with open arms. The rustling leaves whispered secrets in the wind,